Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We have heard the first panel discussion regarding positioning Hong Kong in dual circulation strategy. And then we now come to the second panel discussion, the title of which is Mitigating the Impact of Climate Change with Green Finance. Before we start, and then let me, on behalf of Insurance Authority, welcome all the panelists on stage today, and let me have sort of a brief introduction of all the ladies and gentlemen on stage. From the far side is Mr. Eric Hui, and Eric, the chairman of Task Force on Green Insurance of the Hong Kong Federation of Insurers. Also, he is a CEO of Zurich Insurance Hong Kong. And next to him is another Mr. Hui, that is Mr. Christopher Hui. And we all know that Mr. Christopher Hui is the Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury Hong Kong SAR government. And then next to Mr. Christopher Hui is our only lady on stage this morning, is Ms. Chaoni Huang. And Ms. Huang is the Vice President and the Secretary General of Hong Kong Green Finance Association, as well as the Executive Director and Head of Sustainable Capital Markets, Global Markets APAC, BNP Paribas. And then next to me is Mr. Shawn Hu, and Mr. Hu is the Vice Chairman and CFO of the China Reinsurance Hong Kong. Okay, and then as I said, the title of our second panel discussion is Mitigating the Impact of Climate Change with Green Finance. And climate change is now widely considered the biggest threat to mankind, entailing social, environmental, and economic impact. Extreme weather events have become more frequent and severe in many parts of the world. They brought about the impact to our economic development. For example, a market report estimated a total of 42 billion US, the global insurer catastrophe losses for the first half of 2021. Echoing the efforts of our country, as well as many other countries around the world, the government is putting strong emphasis on tackling climate change with key initiatives, including the Climate Action Plan 2050, which highlights the opportunities for Hong Kong to develop into a green finance hub. Our IA is participating actively in the Green and Sustainable Finance Cross-Agency Steering Group and shaping up a multi-pronged approach together with our industry to contribute to green finance. The CASG further launched the Center for the Green and Sustainable Finance in July 2021, which is a cross-sector platform with participation from the industry stakeholders and academia. The impact of a climate change gathers momentum for green and sustainable finance, with the accelerating emphasis on green and sustainability. The insurance industry should have a significant role to play in addressing the climate change. Insurance companies have expertise and data to provide innovative solutions on managing and mitigating climate-related risks. They are sizable institutional investors for impact investment, and they are corporate citizens that participate in advocating and complying with disclosure requirements. Today, our panelists will share their insights from different perspectives on how Hong Kong insurance industry can strengthen its role in mitigating the impact of the climate-related risks. Okay, before we move on to the discussion, let me have a sort of a quick pulse check on our green finance, on our view, on your views, not our view, your views about the green finance development in Hong Kong, that we have a polling question, and we'll have the result in 30 seconds. All right, the polling question is, which one is the most important stakeholder to effectively drive green finance development in Hong Kong? Then we have 4 choices for the polling. A, the government. The B, regulatory agencies. C, industry bodies. And D, others, apart from A, B, and C. Okay, let's start our polling now. We got 30 seconds. So, and then after the result, we will go straight to the discussion today. Let us see. We got 10 seconds. We both have on-site and online. There will be 2 results. So the music stopped, and then we must have our result. Okay, that is on-site. On-site, as I said, we have government, regulatory agency, industry bodies, and others. Now we have 54% say government. Government. Mr. Hui, this government, 54%. And then 17% say regulatory agencies, and then 22% say industry bodies, and 7% say others. That is on-site. That is not the final result. We have added to the online result. Oh, no surprise. That is that's online again, Mr. Secretary. Huh? 41% say that is a wrong. That is a wrong. Yeah, give me a previous one. Still, no surprise. Even the percent even higher. So, 49% say government. That is online. 49. And 24 say regulatory agencies, and 24% say industry bodies, and the rest 2% say others. So put all together, I can't, my mathematics is very poor, so it's a 49 plus 54, that means over half. Must be, correct? Okay, more than half say government. So we'll concentrate our question on government then. I mean, we have no choice. But before we start on government, probably I would ask Ms. Huang first, okay? And then you give them some introduction before Mr. Secretary says something for the government. And what do you think are the green finance opportunities for Hong Kong financial sector, particularly the insurance industry? Can you tell us something about it?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here. And the result is very interesting. I think I will leave the heavy work to Secretary Hui to address the big question about government's role. But certainly when it comes to green finance, I think we're talking about $1 trillion worth of opportunities. You know, in the latest research from China, in the next 30 years, for China to achieve its net zero 2060 goal, we're looking at least $487 trillion RMB worth of investment into the green sector. So Hong Kong has a natural advantage to support China, mainland China's transition, as well as Hong Kong's own net zero 2050 climate ambition. So I think we are only at the very beginning of the journey in terms of exploring opportunities. We certainly have a very vibrant finance sector, including the insurance industry. So we have lots of capital. There's never lack of capital when it comes to Hong Kong. So how can we mobilize such capital to support climate mitigation, climate adaptation, as well as other environmental challenge? I don't think we have really got the solution yet. Obviously, government plays a central role in developing the right incentive, the right policy for the finance sector to do that. But at the same time, I also think the finance sector, the private sector also has a pivotal role to mobilize capital to do that for its own risk management, for its own opportunity, growth, right? So it's not just the government can solve the climate crisis. The finance sector needs to be part of the solution. So at Hong Kong Green Finance Association, which I spearhead in my spare time, apart from my role at BNP Paribas as the head of sustainable capital markets, we are really trying to develop the ecosystem in Hong Kong to help position Hong Kong to be the leading finance sector. And we work with FSTB, Secretary Hui, and as well as the cross-agency group, to do that, and the industry, right? So I definitely want to use that stage to shout out, the engagement to the private sector, to the industry bodies, industry, the whole insurance industry, to address, the risk as well as the challenge, the opportunity when it comes to climate change.
I see. Thank you. Then we come to our Mr. Secretary, as we had the polling result that over 50% consider government is the most important stakeholders to drive the green finance development in Hong Kong, which I think you know my question. If you don't know, I tell you my question, which is, Christopher, can you share with us more about the government's policies and initiatives to capture the opportunities for green and sustainable finance in Hong Kong?
I think the question that just raised, in fact, you put it in a rather negative light, is that if anything goes wrong with green finance, who is to blame? So I think the government is the answer, right? So thanks for raising that. And before I answer your question directly, I think it's good to share about how we see green finance and also how we see Hong Kong, because before we talk about specifically what we have been doing and also what we plan to do. In terms of green finance, I think all of us agree that it is a very important tool to facilitate the green transformation of societies and economies. But I think a few years ago, if you look at the landscape of green finance, to me it's more supply-driven. So we talk about like more products, more services. So it's more like what we can do more in order to supply the ecosystem with what's to be offered. But now, if you talk to many investors, many asset holders, I think it's more like a more demand-driven landscape. People actually come to us and say, I would like to invest in green stuff. Can you tell me, are they green? And also, what are the standards that Hong Kong has been following to ensure that there's no greenwashing? So with this in mind, this change in landscape of being more demand-driven, I think the role of us as Hong Kong is to make sure that we can have the right things in place to satisfy this demand. And so look at specifically Hong Kong, I very much agree with the panel just now about Hong Kong's role, that even though the physical footprint of Hong Kong is really limited, as highlighted by the previous panel, Hong Kong has limited land, so on and so forth, but the surface footprint of Hong Kong is enormous. That's why we have been serving global corporates, we have been serving international companies, mainland companies from far and wide. So that's exactly what we should do in terms of magnify our advantages in finance field and to make sure that green finance is going to be a star in this overall business development in such a way that it becomes an effective tool for corporates, for individuals and investors to deal with this coming risk of climate change. So back to the point you raised about specifically what we do, I see what we do along three categories. Number one is definitely regulation, and even though regulators are not deemed to be the most culpable parties here, but I think regulation is one of the key elements. Before we can have regulation, it's quite hard for the players to see what they should do and what they should follow. So regulation is, in fact, a very important guiding star in order to lead the market and to make sure that they know what they are doing. And for example, we've been talking about our plan to subscribe to the Common Ground taxonomy being developed between EU and China. And at the same time, by the year 2025, we'll require relevant industries to follow the TCF, the climate-related financial disclosure. So all these are in place. But one thing that's important to note from regulatory perspective is to ensure that all the players have the right capacity to follow that. That's why, as a related point to regulation, there has to be efforts on capacity building. And that brings to the point about you mentioned at the introduction about this cross-regulatory steering group, where we have dedicated efforts with the industry to make sure that we have the right capabilities across the market to make sure that we can fulfill those requirements. That's number one on regulation. And number two, I would say, is about markets. So because after all, Hong Kong is a free economy, and we have been thriving as an economy. So we have to leverage on those advantages to make sure that we can grow this green finance ecosystem. For markets, there are two sides of it, public and private. Public, of course, green bonds, as all of you already highlighted. We have so far, under the government green bond program, we issued more than $7 billion US. And recently, we added a new tranche of euro and also renminbi, all oversubscribed. And also, by having these kind of green bonds in different jurisdictions, it actually helped us to get a new batch of investors. Like, for example, for the recent launch of our green bonds in euro, we have the longest tenor, 20-year green bonds issued in euro dollars by the Asian government. And also, we have 70% of which actually from European investors. So these are a new group of investors that we can manage to get as a result of this new launch. And as all of you know, green finance is also a topic very prevalent in Europe. And also at the same time, there's a very deep efforts and also deep knowledge in that area. So it's good that we managed to get those investors to buy our green bonds issued in euro. And at the same time, apart from euro bonds I just highlighted, the government can't do it alone. We need the private sector to do it with us. And that's why we have a subsidy program to encourage not just us, but also the private sector to issue green bonds in Hong Kong, leveraging our financial services and professional services. And so far, we have received through MA around 30 applications. And also, we can see that the composition and mix of those issues are changing. Usually, these are corporates having like plans to build green buildings, but now we have different types of new products being coming up. One thing which also quite novel is about something like sustainability-linked loans, which are not actually specifically linked to a green project, but more linked to a set of ESG matrix. And in such a way that if issuers can follow and comply with those matrix, they can be charged a lower interest rate. So you see the innovation is going on there in the private sector front. And it's also something we want to encourage. And apart from the green bond market, participated by both the public and private sectors, another market which is key is carbon trading. So we have been talking about that, and also just something that I see as a way to magnify our impact across the GBA. Because after all, Hong Kong as a financial center, the reason that capital are willing to park here is because we have world-class financial regulation, and also we have record credibility in terms of our compliance with the national business standards and requirements. So it is a perfect platform for us to consider whether we can bring in players in the carbon trading areas to Hong Kong in such a way that it can be used as a means to reduce carbon emissions. So it is something that we are looking into through the steering group, and hopefully we can have something announced soon if that's considered feasible. And apart from the market side and regulatory side I just highlighted, the third element is about people. If you talk to many people here, I'm sure, the one biggest challenge, I think not just for Hong Kong, but globally, is to get the right people, the right talent for your business. So in the climate change area and ESG area, I think the same logic applies. So recently in the policy address, we highlighted that we are going to bring in more ESG talent by including in our talent list this type of professionals. But of course, bringing in global talents to Hong Kong is not enough. We need to also grow our domestic local talent. Because after all, if you talk to young people nowadays, I think ESG is something deep in their mind. I think I've been arguing with my son lately about where we should classify those bottles and whatever. I think they have a very much deep philosophical belief in these kind of ESG philosophies, which all of us, I think, should share. And on that front, we are considering how we can better channel, like, for example, the funds already allocated to continuing education funds in such a way that we can have our professionals in Hong Kong to benefit from more ESG courses being offered using that fund. So I think a lot of things going on in general, and also at the same time, we are pursuing a long regulatory, market development, and also talent development sides to make sure that we have the right ingredients to success in our green finance ecosystem. And also, hopefully, if I come back in a year's time, the question will not be posted like this, but more like how successful you think the government has been in pushing for green finance. And I hope that the answer is more on the positive side than the negative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very supportive and clear. And then can I have a sort of, if I may say so, it's a follow-up question for two of you, that what is Hong Kong's competitive edge in green finance, and where are we now? Can Charlie, can you tell us something about it, your view?
I think for Hong Kong to remain its competitive edge, ESG needs to be part of that picture, and that's something that what we have been emphasized on is developing an ESG ecosystem in Hong Kong so that we can build it into our risk matrix, it can build into our product offering, it can build into the talent schemes. So I think all of these are very important for Hong Kong to be competitive when it comes to green finance. If you keep tab of the news like I do very frequently when it comes to ESG, everyone is claiming to be a ESG hub, a green finance hub, right? Looking at our neighbor, looking at mainland as well as outside Asia. So it is getting increasingly competitive, and I think it's for the right reason. And it's really back to the point Secretary Hui made about the demand-driven dynamic that we are seeing in the market. If you look at the sustainable bond space, it has grown to over $2 trillion since the first green bond that we saw back in 2007. And this year alone, we're looking at a fresh supply of already over $800 billion equivalent, right? So Hong Kong can be an important part of the whole evolution in the whole sustainable finance space. So I think, with a very vibrant finance market, the banks, the insurers, which provide as a capital maker as well as the investor, it really, connect, the dots. So I think when it comes to competitive advantage, an existing vibrant finance sector, but we need to add the ESG ingredient so that, it can really can up its game to the next level. So, I would just pause here to let Christopher Hui.
Anything you want to add, Christopher, for this follow-up question, or you mentioned already? Nothing on the Hong Kong's competitive edge in green finance.
Yeah. Because I thought I should leave more time to the other speakers, because we share the same surname anyway. But I think I want to add one point that the panelists just mentioned is our depth and breadth of our financial services. Because after all, I think we are an international financial center, no doubt about that. But I think one thing which is distinguishing Hong Kong from the other centers is that we are a comprehensive international financial center. So we have banking, insurance, security, so on and so forth, even including fintech. Like, for example, in terms of our green bonds program, we are also looking into the feasibility of issuing tokenized green bonds. So you can see that ESG doesn't really exist per se, but rather there is deep connectivity with other areas of financial services, including the latest technology. So this is something that we should also try to see how we can look into this, in particular, how we can deepen this area. Because after all, I'm sure that there are many insurtech people here, and you can see there's a sort of synergies as well between what we do on the insurance side and also on the fintech side.
Okay. I think, one thing to add is the connectivity, right? The key word. It's connectivity to mainland China. Earlier I mentioned China needs 480 trillion RMB in the next 30 years for green finance. So it is a competitive edge for Hong Kong, as long as we can really connect into the mainland market, and which is something that we have been doing. If I look at Hong Kong's green bond market, it has doubled in the last 12 months, and majority of the volume really comes from mainland China. So that connectivity, to mainland China itself is definitely a unique advantage to Hong Kong. So, if we look at the existing connectivity, financial connectivity, Bond Connect, Wealth Connect, we need that ESG Connect as well.
Okay. Thanks very much. Okay. As Christopher said, I leave some time for the other two panelists. Make sure everybody got a sufficient time to express themselves. Okay. Okay. Next is Eric and Shawn, okay? And, okay, may I ask two of you, what is the greatest challenge and how the industry can overcome all these? You see, there must be greater challenge for this sort of new business, huh? And how do you overcome it? Probably Eric start first, okay?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ma. Very honored to speak here. The greatest challenge, I'd like to say if it was on the previous survey we did as Hong Kong FI chairman at the time to our members about what we think about green insurance. Actually, the survey result was very similar to what we had. And the regulators and the government play a very important role. I think the challenge here we are facing is many members are seeing this green finance or green insurance thing very far away. Yeah, they haven't got the capability or the knowledge enough yet. I don't mean all, but some of them, yeah. And they're also expecting the government, the regulator to lead the way. That's why they answer the survey like that. I think this is a challenge for us. How we actually start with the mindset, start with from the business, from the moral standard at least, yeah, how we can contribute to this green environment. That's something I think we need to overcome first, yeah. And the second thing is, honestly, I think that on the global level, there are too many rules or regulations or new things around green finance evolving. For example, in COP26, we just saw the new ISSB. They are coming up, and there could be some new rules that we have to play around. So this is something that is always evolving and makes us a bit difficult to follow. Yeah? Of course, this is what our secretary just said in this CASG workforce. That's what we're trying to do now, to make sure that we can liaise well with the global standards and then bring it to Hong Kong to make it workable for us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Shawn?
我想呢，这个刚才说的这个挑战。
And the challenge you mentioned, of course, it's about the support and the talents. And of course, those are the common challenges we have to overcome as an insurer. And we also face a lot of challenges. For the first panel discussion, and the first question in the panel discussion is about the most supportive things in the future insurance development. And the third choice is the ESG's advancement. And the points for this option was very low, which also shows the lack of the knowledge and the awareness of ESG. And according to the polling questions, and we also see that in Hong Kong, and many insurance are related to life insurance. For ESG insurance, there are very few. And for climate change, we have also a lot of products and risk management. We have diversified products, for example, the forest and the fire protection, and also the catastrophe insurance, and also it includes the new energies, and also the wind power on the sea, and even the lithium batteries. And we have diversified products.
We actually have a lot of promotion in terms of climate change products. And in terms of life insurance, most mindset is focused on investment. Actually, investment also has a role to play because I am from the life insurance background. And actually, the life expectancy is quite long, like 20 years or beyond. And in capital market, it's very hard for you to find a matched product in terms of investment. So some would say that whether I would invest in some wood factory because it has a long lifespan, and also for wood and wood processing, it can provide very stable and lucrative returns and yields for insurance company. And after the buying of of such wood factories, insurance company will also increase some safeguard measures, like the increase of the ranges and also the increase of some protective wood plantation. So insurers have a lot to do to respond to such challenges, and can do a lot of measures to respond. Okay.
That is the outline development plan for the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area development. It supports Hong Kong's development as a green finance center. So may I ask to your view as to how do we to achieve the synergy with other Greater Bay Area's cities? Shawn, can you start first for this follow-up question? 请你先讲一下，好吗？
好呀，好呀。
Okay, no problem. Okay, I will answer this question first. So about the collaboration with GBA to further promote green finance, when I first arrived in Hong Kong in 2019, when China Reinsurance established the Hong Kong branch. Some local governments contacted us, for example, Shenzhen government, who suffer from typhoon every year. Actually, and the typhoon will result in a lot of injuries and casualties. So they want to repackage typhoon as catastrophe products and release in the overseas market. And at that time, Hong Kong doesn't have the legislation to establish these SPI or such catastrophe bonds, because you must have this agency first to issue such bond. And China Reinsurance actually have these bond back in 2015 in Bermuda, which is focusing on earthquake. We have this pendulum in Bermuda, and then later we wanted to do the same in Hong Kong, but we didn't have the opportunity. And last year and this year in Hong Kong, the regulatory bodies and the government had this legislation and passed the amendment regulatory on insurance company and some new regulations and policies. So after the introduction of such policies, we can set up these agency to issue such catastrophe bonds in Hong Kong. And also, Hong Kong government not only have these policies, but also have some subsidy programs. So for the first-time issuers, they can give some subsidy for your issuance capital. Actually, we are very thrilled to hear such news. And as early as March, when we heard these news, our Beijing government headquarters has this working group. To further promote this issue, we communicated with the insurance authority and the finance authority, and then we had our first bond, the catastrophe bonds. We have the Greater Bay Me, which is the name of the bond, and the target is actually very suitable for GBA. To protect against the typhoon risks in GBA. And we have these $30 million US dollars with a period of 1 year. And after the issuance of these bonds, many investors, like investor of catastrophe bonds from international arena, also welcome this move. And also these issuance not only supports the GBA development, but also the development of Hong Kong as the green bond center, green finance center. How was
just like Secretary just mentioned, we are working on this CSG Center of Green and Sustainable Finance. Indeed, I'm a co-chair for this data working group. In the study, actually together with the banks or the asset owners or managers, we found that, well, without disclosing too much yet from the survey, because it's still being prepared, the report, we found that actually many financial service companies are still looking for a lot of climate-related loss data. Yeah, so this very much possessed by insurers. So there's a very close collaboration between banks, asset owners, and insurers. And the loss data that we are looking for is not only about physical loss, but it's also about a loss of life or health. Yeah. So talking about GBA here, we are talking about a bigger community, a bigger territory, and if we can manage the data very well, channel the data very well between the banks and the insurers, then we can become more powerful to price up ILS. Yeah, not only for CAT, but maybe for other sustainability product for pandemic, for example. That's something we can do further in GBA. Yeah. And the other point I'd like to illustrate for GBA, under GBA is, allow me to canvas for business. Yeah? We have this Wealth Management Connect now set up. In this GBA area, now we are talking about more ESG funds in Hong Kong. Yeah? Talking about more ESG bonds in Hong Kong. In our insurance world, we have this so-called ELAS product, investment-linked product. Whether we can build more ESG funds into this product, and make the approval easier, faster for the market, and bring it to the GBA, right on this Wealth Management Connect, I think that would be very helpful to help customers to realize that this green is a very important thing in their daily life. You know, they can also do the investment for green. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Charlie, any view on this topic?
That's a very big question for GBA, and I think Hong Kong definitely plays a central role, particularly bringing an international capital to GBA. I think that's something that will be quite unique, in the next few years to see. I think many of us spoke a lot of products, and certainly, there's a lot of investment interest into climate areas, right? In a very recent survey that we did, we surveyed over 100 institutional investors in Asia. Overwhelmingly, 94% of the investors said, ESG investing, climate investing, is aligned with their long-term interests. And 80% actually estimate that the ESG AUM will increase by 30% in the next 2 years, right? So there's definitely a lot of willingness there to invest, in a ESG, integrate ESG into their investment process. So we need to, for Hong Kong to be the green finance hub, we need to actually mobilize that capital outside China, outside GBA, into GBA when it comes to various, climate, to make GBA resilient, to make it low carbon, as well as, more, livable, for everyone in GBA, right? So I think that's certainly something that we can explore.
Okay, thanks very much. And then we are far behind. Anyway, don't worry. And we have been discussing the green finance in Hong Kong, the opportunities for green and sustainable finance in Hong Kong, and how it supports achieving these sort of climate goals we're discussing topic. And then we come to another topic, and I want the panelists to discuss about the green insurance and climate-related risks and the way forward for the Hong Kong insurance industry to mitigate climate change impact. That is our issue I want to discuss in the second half of our discussion. But before that, we have to do another polling question. And the question I got is that what is insurers' most significant role in mitigating climate change impact? And again, we all have 4 choices. A, manage catastrophe risks. B, manage other climate-related risks. For example, transition risks. C, impact investment. And D, data and modeling. So we start the polling now. Again, we have 30 seconds. We both got on-site and online. Okay, probably we got our result very soon. In fact, we got it. Okay, thank you. Okay, this is the result of the on-site polling result. 36% say A, manage catastrophe risks. 19% say manage other climate-related risks. And 20% say impact investment, and 25% say data and modeling, so that the most of us choose manage catastrophe risk, that is 36%, and then come to data and modeling, which is 25%. This is for on-site one. And for online one, it's 39% say manage catastrophe risks, 16% manage other climate-related risks, and 27% say impact investment, and 18% say data and modeling. So 36 and 36 plus 39 divided by 2, that is slightly less than 40%, 30-something, correct? Okay, thank you very much. So now, as a polling result, and then probably I will ask Shawn the related question. Okay, to mitigate the climate change impact, the insurance-linked securities are always be referenced as a powerful risk management tool. Hong Kong's first ILS in the form of cat bond was issued on 1st October 2021 by your company. And then as a pioneer, could you share with us how does ILS facilitate the mitigation climate change impact?
Would you please introduce the impact? Introduce it to us? Yes. And first of all, when I see the answer, I'm very happy that you didn't choose investment and put it as the first priority, and which shows you are all insurers here, because nowadays, when mentioning the climate change, many people will talk about the investment, fewer are talking about the insurance. So actually, the insurance companies are a special finance tool and also has a special finance position. They combine the common interest to the inclusiveness of the underwriting and the risk. And we talk about the ILS, and it has the similar effect, which is in line with Sally's risk circulation. It underlines the risk and also combine the risk and the purpose of the investment in the market. So other than the risk, we think the vision is also great, because in the future and in the mainland China, you also see there are a lot of climate change related events. For example, we witnessed this the water catastrophe in the Europe, and also this disasters in different places. And we also have a new term that is a green swan event. And before, there was only black swan events. So the green swans are related to the natural disasters. So for insurance companies, we also need the risk circulation tools and package those tools, and also securitize those tools. And those kind of investments are matured in European market, and many investors are long-term investors on this regard. They don't need to establish their own insurance institutes, but by the LS, and then they will be involved in the insurance-related investment. Thank you.
The Hong Kong FI has been putting more emphasis on exploring strategies to promote green insurance since the establishment of a task force on green insurance. Would you please share with us more on the opportunities and challenges?
Yeah, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, we did a survey with the members asking about their view on green insurance. Indeed, I would say the understanding is a bit shallow for most of us, and that's why Hong Kong FI, I see Selina is here, We have been working very much on bringing more seminars, more training to our members so that we can actually understand what it's talking about, right? And we have also got 4 task force, sub-task force. We work on underwriting, products, and also disclosure and benchmarking. Yeah. And for products and underwriting, we separate it for GI and life. Yeah. So the sub-task force have been working quite frequently enough on how to, pave the way forward. However, we still see that the momentum is not good enough. And that's why going forward, we are going to partner with a professional advisor to pave our way, particularly for the challenges like how to build this insurance-specific taxonomy. Yeah, because in the insurance world, there are quite a number of taxonomies or technical terms or data requirements that we have to do by ourselves. So that's the coming work that we have to do. In terms of opportunities, I just mentioned earlier, for life business, we do see that we have a lot of rooms there in our investment-linked product. Our present chairman is very, very happy to hear me saying this. For GI business, I think the whole GI is facing a lot of opportunities. The reason is in the process of doing this adaptation or transition, and many companies, be it manufacturers, service company, or financial service company, they have to change their way of processing. Yeah, they have to abandon the existing process. They may have to buy new materials, new talent, new technology. So Hong Kong is a perfect place. We are international finance and trading hub. Yeah, we can access all this. So in this process, there'll be lots of transformation. I do think that GI, for P&C business, we have a role to look into the change in risk landscape and provide them an updated risk program. Yeah, that's the opportunity I'm seeing, that we can do a lot more there. Yeah. Okay. Because I see a lot of our broker friends here, because there are some new opportunities we can work on. And I would like to backtrack a bit to the survey we just saw. We talk about investment, CAT, but indeed, I think we missed one point as an option there. It's our internal operation. There also lies a very big opportunity for us for working on green finance. For insurers, we are issuing tens of millions of dollars, papers every day, yeah, for many insurers, right? For GI or life, we are sending this paper out for renewal, for policy documents, and it's actually not very green. So in the process of digitization, I think we have to hurry up on this, yeah? There's opportunity for us to be it a better service for our customer and also better for our world. Yeah, that's the opportunity we can work on seriously. I mean, at present at least. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Okay, I got a related question for Christopher and Chaoni. The question is, what is needed most to drive green industry development in Hong Kong? Chris, please.
I think from the discussion we just had, I see 2 key trends here that Hong Kong is witnessing. First of all, I think it's highlighted by China Re, is that there is a broad interest globally among the investors to seek China exposure. And not just for investment purposes, but also at the same time to see how they can have a share in the risk management tools, including the ILS insurance-linked securities that is just issued. And another broad trend is another angle, which is about the need for asset diversification, and in particular risk management from the mainland corporates and individuals. So I think Hong Kong is actually at the converging point of these two key trends. And to make us better competitive and also allow us to take advantage of these opportunities, I think definitely number one is regulation and also enabling policies. And that's why, as highlighted by our friend from China Re, that we have a law in place to allow the issuance of insurance-linked securities. And here, I also want to address the point that highlighted by Eric just now about the awareness issue. So even though people in the past may see ESG or climate risk as something very distant, I think with the recent events now unfolding, like, for example, the flooding in Germany, in Zhengzhou, wherever, I think people do see that it's something imminent. So the next question to ask is how we can see risk, and also to deal with it and also manage it in the rate which is economically viable, yet at the same time good our future generations. So that's exactly what Hong Kong role can play, because we are good at asset allocation, and also we have a whole suite of professional services who are very good at collecting data, analyzing data, and also with underwriting standards in line with international standards. So on that front, we have been closely liaising with our regulators and also with SASAC as well in terms of how we can serve the mainland insurers coming to Hong Kong. Yet at the same time, we have been liaising globally to make sure that the interests of global investors will be able to take advantage of these opportunities using Hong Kong. And insurance aside, I also want to bring another topic, which is also about the awareness issue, because you highlighted something very far away, climate risk, but in fact, it is something very close to our heart and close to now. It's about the coming electrical election, which is on the 19th of December. The reason I bring that up, not for propaganda, but I think it is to highlight the fact that many of the things that we do on the policy side requires legislation. And if we have legislators who are well versed with what's going on in this sector, who understands this sector, I think it will make our work far easier in terms of convincing them, passing the bills that you want. So on that front, do vote. At the same time, do support the one that you think can work for the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. And
it's very hard to add on to what Secretary Hui just mentioned. Very comprehensive view. And I think what I wanted to add is that there's actually no single bullet. We really need all the stakeholders to collaborate together, right, to grow green finance, sustainable finance in Hong Kong and beyond Hong Kong. I think cross-agency steering group is a perfect example, and Hong Kong Green Finance Association is also a very good example. How we really gather private sector and public sector resources, capital, and talents, to raise awareness, to drive policy development that reward the right behavior and penalize the wrong behavior, for example, greenwashing, and incentivize the market to innovate, right? Market actually works quite efficient if you have the right setup. The banks, the insurers need, can risk calculate what's the right thing to do, and develop products to bring the demand and supply together. So I think industry collaboration could be, it should be a successful ingredient for scaling of sustainable finance in Hong Kong.
Okay. Thank you. In fact, thank you very much for the panelists for the discussion today. But I was told that before we can finish, we have to finish another sort of mission. That is a question and our Q&A section. So do we have a... Okay. So I hope we may wrap up the discussion by putting our view, the panelists' view, on two questions as short as possible. Let me deal with the first question first. The first question is, how can insurance collaborate with other financial service sectors to grow green finance? That's the first question. Can I ask, starting from Eric, and then we can, each of us, have a short response?
Very quick. As I mentioned, we need to have better collaboration on data, because everybody has got their own data. We need some good managers to help us, professionals to help us to see how to model all this. And the second thing is for our green investment, insurers are holding on lots of assets, capital. So how to, allow the insurers to enjoy a better green investment return and get the transparency and also the true intention of the funds behind. That's something that finance sector can support the insurers field. Yeah.
Thank you. Chris?
I think for a mutually beneficial cooperation to exist, there has to be two sides. One has to give, and the other also has to give. And also we have to see what we are good at. And to me, I think insurance is about long term. And what it can offer is definitely the diversity of the products in the financial market. Just now, as highlighted, we have the insurance-linked securities, and the reason that has been so popular is because that the products that's being offered is not closely linked to economic cycles. Basically, it's linked to catastrophes, and also it protects risk against those like typhoons, so on and so forth. So that's exactly the diversity that people are after, especially this new age when people are concerned about risk, at the same time look for risk management and diversification. So that exactly, I think, is an area that insurance can offer and also collaborate with other financial sectors.
Okay, thank you.
Pricing climate risk and invest in ESG approach as short as possible. Okay. That's my answer.
Okay, thanks. Shawn.
好，前面
So we talked a lot on ILS. ILS is a good example of the linkage with the finance service, other finance service sectors. And in recent years, and many institutes, they will introduce the ESG investment to us. And for the insurance, and we don't have the same experience as those financial institutes. We also need to gain the experience and learn experience from them. And what kind of a long-term green products they can identify for us. And this is very helpful for us. And IS is also a very good financial service sector. And for example, we will have the newly issued IBC, and this will maybe we will have some preferential policies in the recapital, and this will be a very good promoter for the insurance in the finance service sectors.
What is the most critical factor to support the development of green and sustainable insurance in Hong Kong? So that is the last question. Maybe we start from this side first. 你开始好吗？
我觉得
I think to be more pragmatic, the most important is the senior management's high attention. If they don't attach great importance, then the lower level would not do any move at all. And our chairman, Mr. Yuan Lingxiang, actually is the leader of the ESG group. He is leading this work in person, and we also have a major responsibility, and we have this high attention to ESG. And for ESG indicators and indexes establishment, the framework is important. It can help insurers to identify what is green, actually. And we have to be exempt from the money laundering risks. So we have to know whether the corporate conducts are in line with green.
Measuring and reporting, because if you don't report, if you don't measure, you don't report, you don't know where you are, and therefore you can't really develop green insurance, from risk management, from product development. So I think, utilizing existing framework like TCFD, which is what the regulators are also, pushing the market to do, is a good starting point for insurance sector to use as a framework to manage climate risk, to govern climate risk, and also develop strategy, that is aligned with a climate resilient future.
Thank you, Chris.
I think this answer is us, the government, regulators, industry associations, and market players working together.
Thank you. Eric.
Very quick. 2 points. First one is about the commitment. Yeah, we just talked about the governance, the management. I think we have to have a very clear strategy, the targets, and the focus areas, and then give it to our colleagues to make it the people objectives for the year, so that we can really get something going. The second point is about back to the support from governmental regulators. I think we have some very good track record, success stories like tax incentive for QDAP. This is also a sustainability product, by the way. So when insurers are developing these green products, I also look forward to the support from our regulators, to see how to support the sales. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. ladies and gentlemen, and then once again, thanks for your coming. And on behalf of Insurance Authority, and I would like to thank again the panelists on stage today, that Mr. Hu, Ms. Huang, and to Mr. Hui. So let's give a pause.